Hey, welcome back to Divinely Uninspired, episode 17. It's a bittersweet episode because this is Spencer's last time with us.
Yep.
Spencer, if you're a Journey person, you know that he and his wife Beth announced that they are going to be leaving us, and so we wanted to just give him kind of one last opportunity, one last hurrah on the old podcast. So
it's good to be here.
We'll talk a little bit more about what you guys are going to be doing here in just a minute. But we're joined once again by April.
What's up, guys?
Glad to have you here.
Thanks, Rusty.
I want everybody to know that my shorthand for you is Ape.
Ape, that's okay.
Yeah,
I've been called worse.
Yeah, but it's just how because April, it's not that it's too long, but I just like Ape. So
okay,
it's not personal.
You could say app.
I could, but I like Ape.
I'm going to call you Russ.
You can. That's what Leah calls me. So, and once again, always joined by the one and only Jeremy Willis.
How's everybody doing?
We are great.
Phenomenal.
Yeah. So, Spencer, we have to play our little game.
Of course.
Since you're leaving us.
I'll do it one last time.
Yeah. What does Spencer not know from our backgrounds?
Yeah.
And I was thinking about this. You were very much raised in like the Christian subculture, right? Like, do you know who Petra is?
Well, okay. So here's no, I know the name Petra, but like I wasn't in, I guess that Christian subculture.
Do you know who Petra is? Like what?
I know who they are.
Okay.
I've never listened to a single one of their songs.
What about Striper?
Nope.
No, you don't know Striper?
I've heard the name Striper.
Striper was cool.
Striper was awesome.
I thought so.
Is that a Christian band?
It is. STRYPER.
Were they always Christian though?
Yes.
Are they kind of like the?
They were like the Christian Van Halen.
Okay.
They got a great song.
Were they like?
That's what I was thinking of. Okay.
Were they like the Skillet of that generation? Sort of.
I don't know. I mean, there's a lot to say about Skillet right now because the lead guy is going a little bit crazy about stuff.
Yeah. Are you going to see him at Winter Jam?
No, I don't go to Winter Jam.
I was just curious.
I am anti-Winter Jam.
I am too.
I have stood in the cold far too many times to see subpar performances. No shame for
lots of people like it though. I've never been, nor will I ever go.
KB's going to be there. I like KB.
Who?
KB.
Who's KB?
He's a Christian rapper.
Duh.
Who else is going to be there?
I know Skillet.
Skillet will be there. New song is always there. They're the ones who came up with it.
Yeah, new song. Torrin.
My problem with these bands has always been, so when I was in high school, like there was this big push to like, you don't need to listen to secular music. And so they would give us like these posters with like, if you like Tupac, then you'll like this. If you like Metallica, then you'll like this. And I'm always like, when they would give me those, I'd be like, I don't think y'all have ever listened to music because you told me Metallica that I would like Petra or, that I would like Disciple. And I'm like, I don't, not even close. Yeah.
If you like Korn, you'll like POD.
Well, it was like, if you like Blink 182, you'll like, I don't know.
Reliant K. Hey, listen, I love Reliant K is one of my all-time favorite
Reliant
bands.
K is fine, but they're not Blink 182.
No,
it's two totally different things. Yeah.
I completely agree. All right, so who else wants to test Spencer's knowledge of nothingness?
You got one chance, y'all.
He didn't know who Mike Jones was.
You didn't know who Mike Jones was?
Yeah, I got a call from Mike Jones today, and he didn't know who Mike Jones was. Not that Mike Jones.
I have no idea who Mike Jones is.
Huh. Man, that's that. What about?
Let's do this. Let's reverse it on him.
Okay.
So, of all the things that we've taught you about 90s subpar culture, in the last 2 years, like what are the things that we've told you about that you've actually investigated that you liked? Does that make sense? Like we told you a lot about movies and music, and is there been anything you actually like listened to us about and actually checked out?
I checked out Pogs.
Okay, yeah,
and I wish that would have been like a game I grew up with because that sounds awesome. But
be the catalyst and bring it back.
Yeah.
I think they still sell Pogs. Yeah.
They do.
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
You got to go to like game stores that has a wizard in the window.
Like one of the retro game places.
Yeah. There's one right up on Outer Loop.
Yeah.
And
I'm sure you can Amazon it.
I'm sure you can.
Honestly though, I gotta be honest. Like I have not investigated much. I need to actually write out the list and just start.
Well, the list is so long at this point.
I know.
At this point, it may not. You don't have enough life yet.
Yeah,
probably.
It would take me the rest of my life.
You've much to learn, young grasshopper.
Yep,
young grasshopper.
All right. Well, before we do anything else, let's hear our theme song. Here we go. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. You're listening to Divinely Uninspired, podcast by Journey Church Shepherdsville, hosted by Jeremy Willis and me, Rusty Wilson. You can find us online at journeyshepherdsville.com. For questions or comments, email podcast@journeyshepherdsville.com. Maybe we'll feature your question or comment on a future episode. Thanks for listening. Enjoy the show. So, Spencer, you guys made the announcement a few weeks ago that you all are going to be heading out, you and Beth.
Yep.
And so I just wanted you to take just a minute or two and just kind of let our vast base of listeners all around the world, which we do have them all around the world.
Yeah, we do.
What you guys are going to be transitioning to.
Yeah. So my wife and I, we started talking a couple months ago about a decision to move to be closer to her side of the family. And currently, right now we live like right in the middle of both of our families. And, we're reaching that point where like, we want to start a family of our own. And that obviously becomes difficult when you don't have grandparents around and family around. And not that I wouldn't trust anyone at
I was going to say, because I thought I was family, but
you are
just
family. But yeah, so that was kind of the big motivator. So we'll be moving to Iowa. So I'm super excited about all the corn, and it's a great place. Where we will be living is a place called the Quad Cities. So it's like right on the border of Iowa.
Do they have DJs?
DJs?
I sent him
Quad
one day.
City DJs?
I sent him the.
Come on, ride that train.
Quad City
And ride
DJs?
it.
Seriously?
Remember, I sent that text to you and Beth?
yes.
They did the
He
Space
doesn't
Jam
pay
song.
attention to anything
They
that
did
we
the
say.
Space Jam song.
Oh. Yeah, I don't know. I've never.
Come on and ride the train.
It's probably
Come
the
on
only
and ride
thing
it.
to ever come out of Quad Cities that people would even recognize.
Yeah.
Cool.
That and the Space Jam song.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah. So we'll be in the Quad Cities, and it's right there where Illinois and Iowa bump into each other, and we'll be right down the street from the Mississippi River. And I'm moving into an organization called World Relief, which is a refugee resettlement organization, and so they're hiring me as a church mobilizer. So I'll be working with pastors and local churches, helping them get involved with ministering to refugees, which is really cool. So yeah, that's
very. I mean, especially with what's happening in Ukraine right now.
Absolutely.
The conversation about refugees is really kind of front and center for a lot of people right now.
Yeah.
So, we're excited for you. We're going to miss you.
Yeah.
We're going to have this Sunday is your last Sunday.
my last one here.
Yep. So take all your opportunities to wrap him up in big bear hugs and, give him kisses on the cheek, whatever.
No.
He said maybe not.
Yeah. Okay. Scratch that.
I'm just thinking what April's son Benji would do if I tried to do that. He'd probably punch me in the face.
He probably would. Yeah, he's a little crazy right now.
Can I ask a question?
Absolutely.
The Quad Cities.
Yes.
It's actually like 5 cities now, right? Like they've changed it.
There's one city, and I'm probably going to upset people who live there, but there's a city called East Moline, and like
as opposed to West Moline.
Yeah. I'm only saying this like because it's what my wife has told me because she used to live in the Quad Cities, but apparently it's like a big deal there that like East Moline is like not officially one of the Quad Cities.
Okay.
But it is a city in that area. They get like really upset about it.
Got it. Okay.
So yeah, there's technically like 5 cities there, but 4 like primary ones that are all in that area.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
all right. Well, I had to ask. So it's the, I guess it'd be like the Shepherdsville of the Louisville area then.
I don't know how you would.
Yeah, I don't know.
Well, I love Shepherdsville.
I love Shepherdsville too. It's great.
All right. Well, Spencer, thanks for your time here at Journey and appreciate all that you've done and wish you the best and Beth the best. And we'll see you when we see you, I guess.
Yeah.
So
yeah, we'll be stopping down to Kentucky.
Yeah, he's
because
gonna
I'm
miss us.
never going to go to Iowa. I'll be honest with you.
That's what everyone keeps saying is they'll never go to Iowa. It's a great place.
it's a flyover state.
Yeah, it is a flyover
It's a
state.
wonderful state.
I've driven through Iowa before.
It's a boring
I've driven
state.
through Kansas before. I've driven through Iowa before, and I've never been so bored in my entire life.
Yeah, it's really
I've driven through
flat.
Kansas, and Kansas is awful. But the part of Iowa we're moving to is actually really fun.
Yeah, it's like a city, but
Yeah,
like
it's like a river town.
and like the plains.
Yeah, the rest of the
I don't
state,
know, it's-
there's not much going on.
Yeah, it's pretty.
I just want to say that you will not sit next to anyone as awesome as me in your future career. Just
Probably.
want you to know that.
Probably not. Yep.
At least not somebody is loud. Or
I see how it is.
I
Rusty.
mean, I don't know if I can fully agree with that because I'll be working at the same place Beth works at.
Okay,
and
well, that's
she'll be
fair.
next to
She's
me.
your wife, but apart
So,
from that,
yeah.
just saying, you're going to miss
all
me.
right. Well, today is also a special day because it's St. Patrick's Day. And, a lot of people don't know a whole lot about St. Patrick. And he seems to be everybody's favorite saint because
Get a drink on St. Patrick's Day.
drink beer, green beer.
And the Chicago River turns green.
That's right. But he was a real dude, and he had kind of a crazy life. And so I just wanted to share a couple of crazy little facts about his life. I told this to the staff the other day, and none of us knew how to feel about it. But he was actually enslaved on his mission to Ireland, and
Which is the first fact people should know is he wasn't even Irish.
Yes, correct. He was British.
Yeah. So I think people just assume that he was this Irish guy, but he's not even Irish.
yeah, and he was actually, I'm sorry, so he was captured and kidnapped by pirates when he was about 16 in Britain and taken to Ireland. And while he's there, he has some crazy dreams, and he eventually finds himself as a fugitive slave. And he finds a ship that he hears is sailing back to Britain. And he goes to this ship, and it's a bunch of, pagan heathen people or whatever. And he's like, hey, let me on your ship. I need to go home. And they said, we'll let you on our ship, but first you have to suck our nipples. And this is a true story.
So gross.
It is. And so in that culture at that time, that was the way that tribe would pledge like fealty and loyalty to the king or the leader or whatever. But Patrick declines, and they're like, all right, well, you can ride on the boat anyway. So
Who made that rule? That's the strangest.
It was a strange world back then.
Yeah,
April.
but like who just, I don't know who sits around and thinks about, what's going to show that I'm the boss.
Yeah.
Just don't
It's
get
just-
it.
I mean, it would be a very humbling thing to be I don't want to use the word that I'm thinking of, but to be the person having to perform the act.
Yeah, it would be definitely like a sign of like you were inferior to this person.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which we can get into a whole lot of stuff. I mean, there's a lot of stuff from culture that's like that, though. I
Yes.
mean, especially in the Roman Empire, there was a lot of stuff going on with that type of stuff
Weird.
to like prove to the other guys that
Yikes.
they were, So anyway, but we don't have to get into all that.
No, we won't get into
Thankfully, let's not. Moving right along.
So he also, this is an interesting thing that people, there are no snakes in Ireland. And that is, according to legend, because Patrick banished all of the snakes.
Ran them all out of the nation.
He did. He banished them from the island. So he converted about 120,000 people through his mission work there. So pretty important dude, but we need to, celebrate his refusal to suck nipples and cast out snakes, I guess.
So where did the pinching come in? Like if you're not wearing green?
That's
Almost
a
everything.
leprechaun thing.
Yeah,
It's a
it's a leprechaun thing. Okay.
And then almost everything you find about St. Patrick's Day is really just American products, like
Gotcha.
corned beef and all that. That's American. Like the parade is American. Like
I don't know anything about St. Patrick's Day.
there
so.
was a day that they decided we could all just like people would drink as much as they wanted, and so they just made up all these things about it.
Interesting.
Yeah. But it's a big excuse to get hammered, I guess.
And
for
St.
one.
Patrick didn't wear green; he wore blue.
Interesting. I didn't know that.
I didn't know that. That's
His
you learn
robes are
something-
blue, not green.
you
He
learn
was a
something
Kentucky
new
fan.
every day. No, no,
Trying.
He probably was.
he may have been.
If he was smart, he would.
All right. So anyway, that was just our fun little St. Patrick's Day weird facts. So you'll never look at it the same way again. So when you see those, "Kiss Me, I'm Irish" shirts for St. Patrick's Day, just think St. Patrick said no. All right. So first real story that we're going to talk about is there is a $100 million ad campaign that is currently running, and it is called He Gets Us. Okay. It's a $100 million ad campaign, and its goal is to make, and this is a quote, Jesus the biggest brand in your city. All right. So this is from Christianity Today. If you haven't seen the commercials yet, you will. This month, what is thought to be the biggest ever Christian advertising campaign will go national. Television commercials, along with online ads and billboards, will target millennials and Gen Z with a carefully crafted, exhaustively researched, and market-tested message about Jesus Christ. He gets us. All right, so we'll link this in the show notes, but essentially there is this group of wealthy anonymous donors who are pumping $100 million into this ad campaign to try and get people to connect with Jesus. So I just kind of want to have a conversation a little twofold. So the first conversation is, will it be effective? That's the first conversation I want to have. And then the second question I want to have is, what do we think about Jesus being a quote unquote brand? So what are your, do you think it'll work?
No.
I don't think so either.
I don't think it'd have any. You know who's going to get excited about this? Christians.
A certain
genre,
type of Christian.
But most Christians are not. I mean, and definitely somebody that's not a Christian is not going to care about this at all. You know, it just sounds dumb. I mean, I'll be honest with you.
Where my immediate thought goes to is when I lived in Georgia, there was a highway I would drive and I would pass this billboard all the time, and it was like in big, like bold letters, like Jesus is Lord. And as a Christian, I remember like even like getting annoyed at just like seeing it, and because I'm like, yeah, Jesus is Lord, but I mean, it's a billboard.
Well, and I think my point, I think I would say too is, okay, so because we're gonna get into the stuff later with the what does Jeremy think question, but like it just seems like a waste of money. It seems like
that's
a big waste of money.
That's the other thing.
And the other thing is in America, I mean, even if you go like Pacific Northeast or Northwest and even the Northeast, which are more of the hostile areas towards and less Christians and stuff like that, everybody knows who Jesus is. Like Jesus doesn't need like marketing. Like they know who he is. They've rejected him basically because of us, you know, for the most part, and as Christians. And this is another reason that like, hey, what could you have done with $100 million? Like imagine if you'd gone to a city, Boston or, you know, one of these cities, and invested $100 million in their school system and said, oh, we're doing this for Jesus. Like, yeah, it sounds a little cheesy, but people would have paid attention to that. They're not going to pay attention to these ad campaigns, you know, and it just seems like a waste of money. And if you're going to do it for Jesus, like, I don't know, it just.
Well, especially if it's like a YouTube ad too, like everyone
wait your 5 seconds and then skip it.
Right. Yeah. Like people are just going to skip it. Yeah.
Yeah. I
do that all the time.
I don't think it's going to work. And I think it's a enormous waste of money. They said that this campaign is actually as big as like Old Navy's campaigns and Mercedes-Benz's campaigns.
But again, when's the last time I watched an Old Navy or a Mercedes-Benz commercial?
The last Old Navy commercial I remember is the one where it's these like 8 little girls screaming their heads off for winter clothing. And that's like a 12-year-old ad now. That's
but
the
like,
last
think about
one
that. Like those comparisons, like, first of all, I don't never owned anything from Old Navy. Like I don't think I ever have. And I'm not saying I just never I don't shop.
Best
number one.
flip-flops
He's
ever.
more of an Abercrombie and Fitch guy.
No, I'm more of a just outlet mall and just, oh, these fit. That's what I'm wearing today. So I've also never drove a Mercedes-Benz. So like to compare those, like, yeah, I can watch the ad, but I'm not going to go buy a Mercedes-Benz or go to Old Navy and get their, you know, whatever. So I don't know. It just seems like a massive waste of money.
I agree.
You know, I think if you were investing $100 million into something that was really going to help your city or community, then that might make, you know, people more aware and then be able to say, hey, we did this because we love people and Jesus loved people, and much more effective than an ad. Yeah.
Yeah. Because I almost have to ask the question of what are they advertising? Like Jesus? Because I don't know that, I mean, and this is going to sound cheesy, but like we should be the advertisement for Jesus. I mean, it should be the way, and not like we're walking around with signs on that say, hey, he gets us.
Watch it.
Which is, that's true. You do that a lot, but just the way we interact with the world that we live in.
Right.
I mean, think about how many Christian t-shirts you could buy with $100 million.
Oh, I would
and
so
just
be
send
excited.
them out to everybody to wear. And just one day we all wear our Christian t-shirts. We could change Louisville.
I agree.
I don't know if we'd change it for the better though. All right. So let's talk for just a second though about Jesus as a brand, because it seems like with Instagram and Facebook and Twitter and all that, each person on there these days, it seems like they have a brand, that they are the brand, right? And I was just talking to somebody about this, that they're like, yeah, when you have an online business, you're an influencer or whatever, you are the brand. Mm-hmm. And I just want to know what you guys think about Jesus as, quote, the biggest brand in our city. Like, how does it make you feel?
I don't think Jesus himself should be the brand. I think the brand of Jesus is serving and loving other people. Mm-hmm. And so when you try to throw out Jesus is the brand, like, what does that mean? Like, I feel like you've got to associate something else with it. And to Jeremy's point, like, investing $100 million into serving others, like, that's more on brand for Jesus than, just saying he gets us. I don't know. That's kind of where my mind goes.
Yeah, I'd agree.
I think if Jesus was, if he were here today and he were like, I'm going to create a brand, I think it would be on par for him to say, my brand is going to be going and hanging out with the marginalized and the people who, society doesn't accept, and loving others and things like that. Like, that would be his brand.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'm going to put on my old man hat right here. I think that people that consider themselves a brand are just stupid. I think we're getting dumber as a country. I think influencers are dumb. I think people considering themselves a brand is just about the dumbest thing I've ever heard of. I'll be honest with you. I just think it's dumb. I think it's dumb that people get paid to make videos that people watch. Like, I'm in a place with this where I'm just like, what is going on? And like, to think that you can use this for Jesus, like, I don't know. I wrestle with this stuff. I read this article and I was just like, what is going on? Like, I don't know.
So the founder of the creative office that is heading up this brand, his name is Bill McKendry. And in this article, he said that Jesus would have approached our current state of Christianity with a business savvy attitude, because Jesus was business savvy.
No, he wouldn't.
And he said this: Jesus crafted his language and his storytelling to resonate with people, which he
did. Yeah.
He told agricultural stories to farmers. He told fish stories to fishermen. This culture is immersed in media, and we're using media to reach them for Christ. I don't, on the surface, disagree with any of the things.
But I think the bigger issue, I think is why I talk about the brand as being stupid, but it's not Jesus that most people have a problem with. It's us.
Right.
And so the problem is you can get somebody connected to Jesus, but if we as the church, as the body of Christ, are buying into this type of stuff, like, people are going to be, and not even just this stuff, but just the way we treat people, the way we,
our actions speak so much louder.
And, and so it's like, I just, that's the part where I struggle with. Yeah, okay, there's a cool ad, and maybe Jesus would love me even though I'm a drug addict or because I watched one of their ads. I'm a drug addict, I'm a prostitute, I've got tattoo. Which, first of all, can we just stop pretending like people with tattoos are bad people?
Right.
Like, most people around this table have tattoos. Like, it's not like that's the mark of a.
We are bad people.
But you know what I'm saying? Like, that's like the Christian thing. Oh, they got tattoos, they must be a bad person. Like, what in the world? Like, just, I don't know. Anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I would agree that I think the brand that is in trouble here is not Jesus, it's Christians.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's the brand that needs to be fixed. And you can't do that with an ad campaign.
No.
Like, you could do that. You could have $100 billion and you're not going to fix that issue until you get into the hearts of the people who make up the church, which, that's what we're trying to do.
And I think I think for somebody to look at this from a secular environment and say, you spent $100 million on an ad campaign that you easily could have invested into the homeless in your community, the schools in your community. I mean, you pick whatever cause you want to, teen suicide. I mean, you pick whatever cause you want to do. I mean, and for you to put your money where your mouth is, I mean, that is going to have a positive impact on people. I don't know. So
especially if it's targeted toward millennials, because you would want to invest that into something that grabs their attention and
something they care about.
Right. Exactly. That's how I would approach it anyway.
I really want to know who these anonymous donors are.
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
I won the lottery. It was me.
It was, I wish I could say I was shocked.
Shut up.
I just have to imagine that the people who are pouring the money into this are are not, they're probably not living out the gospel lifestyle themselves. That's just my guess. Because if they were, they would probably feel that $100 million could be used in a much better way.
Well, I would argue too, the whole $100 million number, like to me, it just seems so unnecessary. I mean, like I'm on TikTok and I see guys who just have an iPhone recording just a selfie video of themselves talking about Jesus, and they're reaching millions. And like I follow guys on Instagram who create Christian artwork or Christian videos. They just do it in their own time and they post it on Instagram and they reach millions. And so like this idea that like you have to plug $100 million into something in order to, reach people. I mean, sure, do whatever you want, but I don't see why it's completely necessary when there are other guys who are doing it for way less money.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Alrighty. Well, if you disagree with us, I guess in this regard, we don't really care. But if you would like to send us, messages and tell us why maybe we could rethink this, please do so at podcast@journeyshepardsville.com. All right. So next story, and this is one that is a lot of fun. I really like this story. This is coming out of Live Science, which we reference a lot. Headline: haunting mermaid mummy in Japan is probably a gruesome monkey fish mix. All right. So there is this 300-year-old Japanese mummy that it has like the torso and face of a monkey, and the back end, the rump of a fish. So it's a mermaid monkey thing. And for 300 years, this thing has been worshipped as like a holy thing for its medicinal properties, which I don't really know, like if people are taking off little flecks of it and then consuming it. I don't know. But they did a study into where this thing came from. And they're saying that essentially somebody took the torso of a monkey and the back end of a fish and they sewed them together. And I don't know what to do with that, but I love it.
It's a strange world, Rusty.
Yes. Very strange.
There is actually a movie that April represents really well. It's called House of a Thousand Corpses, and it's a Rob Zombie film where this family kidnaps people and then cuts them in half and then sews half of them onto another animal's body. And one of them,
gross. Yeah,
one of them is a mermaid. And so I just got to thinking, because April is such a Rob Zombie fan.
No, April's not.
No. So, Jeremy, what are your thoughts about this mermaid monkey?
I just looked at the picture because the link you sent earlier, I couldn't connect to. It is terrifying looking. I'm going to tell you that. I think it's weird. It definitely, my first initial thought is, is it really a monkey that had some type of deformity? Do you know what I'm saying? Like, obviously we know that animals and primates and human beings can be formed with certain deformities. So, it could be that. It could be a fish that was some.
Ew, this thing is
weird.
creepy.
It's really weird looking.
I haven't seen it. I need to see a picture.
This thing looks like a demon.
Yeah, it does look like a demon. Like it does. That's a good description. It looks like a demon.
There you have it. It was a demon.
Oh
so,
my gosh.
Yeah, maybe it was.
Not looking at it.
Didn't we talk about like the gates of hell a couple weeks ago or something like that? Maybe it came out of there, So
So it has been around since the first recorded piece of it being in history was in 1736. So it's been around a really long time. And the fact that like if somebody stitched that thing together, I'm very impressed that it has stayed together. But they said they're sending samples away for DNA testing, and we are going to keep an eye on this story because they don't have the results yet. But when they do, we are going to do
it is terrifying looking though.
A monkey mermaid extravaganza episode.
I wonder.
Interesting.
Like in the style of like the Maury Povich show, we're going to open an envelope.
Okay.
This mermaid is
the father
the father of the mermaid monkey. I don't know. So, but it's going to be, we're going to keep an eye on this because I think that this could be the thing that brings the world together.
I wonder what was going on in the 1730s that made someone say, you know what? That's what I'm going to do today.
Yeah. Well, they believe that just based on appearances, they said that they believe it's made from the body of an orangutan and the tail of a salmon. And if you have seen the movie The Greatest Showman, I've not seen that movie, but apparently there's something similar to this, and this is where they got the inspiration for whatever happened to that movie. So
You haven't seen The Greatest Showman?
I've never seen it.
Me either.
Ever since Jeremy talked about every time he sees Hugh Jackman, it's just Wolverine. Wolverine does this. Wolverine does that.
Yeah.
Wolverine in a circus. I don't know. I'm not eager to watch it.
It's a good movie.
Yeah. Well, not today. It's not.
You're a millennial.
Yeah. Okay. Let's move along to something that's a little more important, and we're going to hear what Jeremy thinks. And this is from a listener. So this is from Keith Weedmar. He wrote us a letter, and I summarized his email, but it says this. Many years ago, a colleague of mine left her job to do mission work. When she returned several years later, she spoke at our school about her experiences. The one thing that I remember is she said she realized she had more than she needed. I too have more than I need. I can sell my house and vehicles and buy smaller and older ones and free up tens of thousands of dollars. My life would not change much if I lived in a smaller house and used an older vehicle. If 10 people in my situation did this, we could free up $500,000 to $100,000 that could be used to help the less fortunate. Should I do this? Should we all live less so that others could have more? God bless. Now I cut this out of the email, but he goes on down to the end. He's like, does April need to pay $200 a month for cable so she can watch Hallmark? Does Rusty really need to buy that new amplifier? And the answers to those questions are yes, we need those things. But
I just want to.
He actually in the email says $500,000 to $1 million.
Oh,
so
is that what
maybe
it says?
he's behind the campaign that we just talked about.
maybe he is. So before we do anything else, let's hear.
What does Jeremy think?
So this is one of the things that I struggle with the most personally, but also from a leadership standpoint. It is one of the most talked about subjects in the Bible is money. If you actually break the Bible down and look at all the verses that talk about money or generosity or giving or possessions, it is one of the most dominant themes throughout the Bible. And it's actually the thing that Jesus talked about the most of almost anything he talked about, which is fascinating to me that it's one of the things that we want to talk about the least. And I think that, I always say, so I'm going to set it up and then I'm going to answer what I think. There's that famous verse where Jesus talks about that you can choose to serve God or you can choose to serve money. And I think that most of us have chosen which God we're going to serve. And it wasn't the God that Jesus is talking about. I think that we live in a culture that is, and I talk about this, America is the greatest country in the world. I don't want to live anywhere else, but we have given over to the God of capitalism, in so many ways. And we have chosen money. We serve it. I would say in some regards, it's actually become our God. And the reason we don't talk about it very often in a negative way in our love of money is because we don't want to offend people in their God. That's just my personal, honest opinion. I also say that as someone that struggles with that myself. Rusty, you and I think Spencer maybe, but we've been to Honduras, we've been to Guatemala, Dominican Republic. You go there, you see these people that live on so little and are happy. And then you come back here with a culture where we have so much and we're all miserable. And you just have to ask the question, like, okay, there's something wrong here. The other thing is every time I go to Honduras or Guatemala or hopefully eventually Dominican Republic, and I've been other places too, Mexico, and I've been out, even in the United States, I've been in places of extreme poverty. You come back with this feeling of like, oh, I don't need the stuff I have. I'm going to change my life. And then a week later, they announced the iPhone 11 came out, or whatever. I don't know what number we're on now, 13 or whatever, and you need this new car and you need this new TV and, all of these things. And so I say this with unsincerity, like I struggle with this a lot because I do agree with Keith. I have way more than I need. I live in a much nicer house than I probably need. I drive a much nicer vehicle than I probably need. So I say all that to say, yes, it's something we have to wrestle with. Now, let me also say this. Some of the wealthiest people I know are also some of the most generous people I know. And some of the people I know that barely get by and live paycheck to paycheck are also some of the most greedy people that I know. They take, they're not givers. And so I think that's that balance of trying to live in that world of, okay, how do I manage my money? How do I do that? I think as America, this is an American problem. There was a study came out a couple years ago that said that, for us to meet the basic health needs of most people in the world, give clean water and access to food. So when they say food, they're not talking about steak dinners. They're talking about beans, rice, but just basic nutrition. So basic healthcare, which is probably just take care of the stuff you can, clean water, and just basic food needs. So rice and beans and, maybe a protein or something like that. It would cost about $20 billion a year. Okay. That same year in America alone, we spent $20 billion on photography, $20 billion on elective cosmetic surgery, and over $20 billion on accessories for our pets. Now, not pet food, accessories for our pets. So you think about that: photography, elective cosmetic surgery, and accessories for our pets. 3 things that could go away tomorrow and it wouldn't even matter. I mean, it just wouldn't. And we have the ability in our country alone to change the course of people's lives. And we just don't do it. And we're not going to do it. You know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, that's just reality. It's not, and I'm not picking on anybody's into photography or cosmetic surgery. I'm just saying those are the facts, that we could have eliminated one of those 3 things for 1 year and met the basic needs of most people around the world.
But Jeremy, Jesus said that I came so that you might have life to the full. And in order for me to have life to the full, I need to be able to buy little booties for my dog to go outside in the rain. And I need to be able to get Botox injections and all that. So
I don't think that Jesus is, people would disagree. I'm not saying we have to go sell everything and that we have to go live a life of poverty. I think we've been blessed. I do think that. And I think that is something that we see in the Bible, is that you especially get in the Old Testament, some of these dudes were rich, and these are still people that God used and loved. And so I don't think that you can't have possession. And the other thing with God and money is this: when money is presented, it's not money that's the problem. It's the love of money. So money is a neutral thing. Possessions are a neutral thing. It's what we do with that. And I would say for most of us, and I'll just speak for myself, I love money. It's the love of money. It's the love of the nice things. And here's the other thing I'll say, and so we can talk about this. A lot of the stuff that I feel like I need, and I talked about this on the sermon one time, it's not even stuff that I need. I want people to see me living there, driving that, doing that, because then I feel like I'm in. Does that make sense? And just me being honest. Like, I think that sometimes we have to wear certain things, we have to do certain things because we want people to think we're successful, because that is another God here in America, is success, And so when Jesus says, I want you to have life and life to the full. Okay, here's the deal. There's people in Guatemala and Honduras that are probably living a fuller life than I have and barely have anything that I would consider that make my life valuable. Does that make sense? And I think that's, I know you're being sarcastic when you say that, but that's the reality, is that you go and meet these people, and these are some of the happiest people you've ever met, who live in circumstances that you and I would just be like, no way, Right.
So let me flip this question on its head just a little bit, because this is the other extreme that we see people go to. The rich young ruler comes to Jesus and he says, well, I've done all this stuff. What do I need to do to enter the kingdom of heaven? And Jesus says, sell everything you have, give it to the poor, and come follow me. And is that a commandment for all people?
No, I think it's also the same. Is that the same story where the guy has to bury his father? Is that the same story where it's the same?
It's in the same concept.
Same pericope.
Yeah.
So both of those stories, the way I read both of those, is Jesus knew that guy, that it was the love of money that was going to keep him from it. What, you know what I'm saying? Yep. It wasn't his possessions. It was the love of those things. And it's the same thing with the guy and his father, in that same little section, the guy's like, it sounds cruel. Jesus is like, but the way the guy says it, his dad's not dead. He's talking about when my dad dies and when I bury, eventually I'm going to do this. And so it's like, Jesus no, let the dead bury the dead. It's this idea of that's the thing that's keeping you from following me. So that's the thing we have to get rid of, and I think it is the same thing with the rich young ruler. It was he could not imagine following Jesus and not having that stuff. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that and I talk about that. I think that you can have nice things and live in a nice neighborhood and drive a nice car and whatever you need, you can have those things, but it's when you can't imagine not having those things and still think that God is good, that's when the problem comes. And I think those are the things we need to strip away, are the things that we, most of us around this table, let's just be honest, when the bank account's full, when we have jobs, when we have warm clothes, when we have food, God is good. The question is, and I think that goes into the Job question, if all that's removed, is God still good in your life? And I think that's the thing that we have to wrestle with, is if these possessions got taken away. To Keith's point, I think that all of us could probably live. I mean, and me and Jamie, my wife, we regularly talk about let's just sell the house and go live, an RV somewhere, and we say that, like, don't be surprised if one day that happens. Like we wrestle with this a lot, you know, and we wrestle too with the other thing is, what are we teaching our kids? You know, there's this great story in Deuteronomy where Moses is talking to the people, and it's this thing where he's teaching them. He says, you know, and it's the idea of like, you know, when you beat the olives, leave behind a portion for the foreigner, the widow, and the fatherless, you know, and when you gather your grapes, you leave behind a portion for the foreigner, the fatherless, and the widow. And what's interesting is when he's telling them that story, they don't have anything. They've just came out of slavery. And so that's like the interesting idea is very early on, it's like, hey, when one day you have these things, don't forget to do this, because the danger is, you know, we forget. The danger is if we grow up in a system of greed, we grow up in a system of that, it's hard to break that. And so this story, what's fascinating to me is before they even have any of this stuff, Moses is trying to beat into their heads, you have to be generous, you know, and he even ends it by saying, remember that you were slaves in the land of Egypt, because we are creatures prone to forget. I get off the plane from Honduras and I forget everything I saw, you know, and I'll show pictures and talk about it, but I forget it, you know, because I get into my truck and, you know, I go to the airport and I get my pizza and, you know, I open up my iPad and, you know, I forget, you know, and so it's just that thing that we're prone to forget. So I know I've talked a lot, but yes, we could all live on less. And I think that each individual has to wrestle with that. I think that in light of what we talked about earlier with the $100 million campaign, you know, I think that that's something we all have to think about is how are we spending our resources, and, you know, could we give more? And the answer is yes, we could always give more. And so we have to wrestle with that. And then I think the bigger question is, in our hearts, are we greedy? You know, because you can have nice things and not be greedy. Okay. But I also know, like I said, people that get by paycheck to paycheck that are some of the biggest takers I've ever met. And that's a heart issue. That's not a money issue. That's a heart issue. So I don't know if I answered that. I mean, any other thoughts about that, or that's kind of where I land on it.
No, I think you've made a good point for April to sell her Tesla, and you know,
I don't have a Tesla, and I want to make it known I do not have a $200 cable bill.
What do you pay for cable? I'm just kidding. I don't really want to know what you pay
about
for cable.
$80, but that includes internet. So,
well, sounds to me like
I got a good deal.
You sure?
See,
yeah.
thank
you.
And
I do want to say too, I think that some people use this as a way to, like, I know you were just joking, but to judge other people.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, absolutely.
Like I don't drive a new car. I drive, well, that's a hard issue too. That's not an actual compassion and generosity issue. Right. That is. So here's the thing. Truly generous people don't talk about their generosity, and they don't need to make a spectacle of it. They know that what they're doing, you know, and that's the thing. I mean, the people I look up to that I know that are generous never say anything about their generosity. They're just doing it. And, you know, it's that whole, don't let your right hand know what your left hand is doing. And so, I think that's a lesson we all need to take about being more generous with our resources, but also our time and our skill sets. So.
All right.
Yep.
Well, that was what Jeremy thought.
That's what Jeremy thought.
And we're gonna take that and chew on that, and we're gonna talk about something that's even more fun than money, and that is what's going on here at Journey. So for the next couple of Sundays, we've been asked, past few Sundays, and for the next couple of Sundays, we have been asking for candy, and that's not just for us to eat in the office. It's not for us at all. It is actually, we partner with several of the elementary schools here in Bullitt County, and a great opportunity for us to love on those kids and those families is to do Easter egg hunts for those kids. And so the schools actually allow us to come in and assist with that for those students. And so we are collecting as much nut-free candy as possible so that we can continue to partner with our elementary schools here in Shepherdsville and around the Shepherdsville area. So if you would like to donate to that, you can do so with candy. Bring it to the church building, and we will gladly take that and take it where it needs to go, or through the app, which is the best place to stay connected with what's happening here at Journey. It's also a convenient, easy way to give. You can give through the app to the missions drop down, and we will use that money towards purchasing candy for this, because we very much view our Bullitt County school system as a mission field for us. We have a lot of teachers, a lot of administrators, a lot of staff and faculty that work for the school system. We very much view that as one of our mission fields.
And if a couple bags of Reese eggs get thrown in there accidentally, we'll make sure that those get. Why is it that Reese eggs taste much better than a Reese cup?
They're fresh. That's why.
They're so good.
They are.
They're very good.
They
They're
are
really good.
My favorite's the Cadbury cream egg.
Yes,
love
that's
the
my
Cadbury
favorite.
cream egg.
Yeah.
Mine too.
All right. Kids K through 3 on Friday, March 25th, because we know we have a lot of kindergartner through third grade.
That's like next week.
Yes, it is. So all you kids listening out there, tell your parents you want to come to the Kids Drive-In event here at Journey. That is at 6:30 to 8:30. You can sign up for that through the app. If you have any questions or comments about that, you can reach out to our children's pastor, Kira, and she will take care of helping you figure out what you need to do and how you need to get there. Easter times, we are still looking forward to Easter this year, I guess. I don't know. Are we excited about Easter?
Yeah,
it's
it's
just-
Yeah,
Easter.
Easter.
That's my favorite.
I do love Easter. But we have our Easter times now that we are ready to announce. Jeremy, what are those Easter times?
I don't even know, man.
It's 8:45, 10, and 11:15.
Yeah, that sounds right. I know we're not changing our two main service times.
That's
We're
right.
adding an early
It's
time.
8:45.
8:45.
All right, we are a well-oiled machine around here.
You said that. I was like, I don't even remember what I said.
8:45, 10, and 11:15. There will not be any student activities at that 8:45 service. So students,
There will be kids though.
there will be kids,
but no
yes.
students. So
And
middle school and high
donuts.
school.
and donuts.
That's right.
And other things. Other surprises. We have a lot of surprises in store for Easter.
We hear that Jesus might be here that day.
Yeah.
Are they good donuts?
Of course.
They're duck
going to be
donuts.
a good donut.
They're duck
not.
donuts?
No, he's
I
lying.
didn't say that because you're not going to be here.
Yep. Sorry,
I'm gonna miss
Spencer.
Well,
Duck
actually,
Donuts.
Duck Donuts is coming and making them fresh in our lobby.
Yeah, do it.
No, they really are.
He's
Cool.
lying.
That's great. I know he's lying.
No, they actually do that.
What?
They
They have
make
a
it-
truck. Yeah.
They make them fresh.
They're actually overrated. Duck Donuts is way
They are
I
not
agree.
overrated.
They
Duck-
are overrated.
People listening,
I like
Duck
Sky
Donuts,
Donuts.
is the
Yeah.
best donuts ever.
No.
Yep.
For anything else Journey related, go ahead and download the Journey app. You can even listen to this podcast on that app, and it updates automatically. So we make sure that that is ready to go for you. Okay, so let's talk about our group discussion here for just a minute. So there's a recent report. So Julie Royce, she is a Christian journalist who she runs something called the Royce Report, where she reports specifically on church and Christian culture related things that she believes need to be exposed and talked about. She was one of the heaviest voices involved with reporting on what was going on with Mars Hill at Harvest Bible Church. Several.
Did she do Willow Creek too? Was she a part of Willow
she
Creek?
was.
Yeah.
She was a part of Willow Creek, and she just came out with a new report that talks about how in 2002, mega church pastor and author John MacArthur publicly shamed a woman in his church and excommunicated her during communion for not reconciling with her abusive husband. Now, that husband was on staff at the time at that church. He is now serving 25 to life in federal prison for child molestation and abuse, and he's been there since 2005. So this is just now coming out about this situation. And John MacArthur has been in the news, not for a lot of good reasons in the last couple of years, going against, pandemic-related safety issues. And when Beth Moore, was leaving the Southern Baptist Convention, he made some not great comments about her, really just demeaning comments. And so what I want to talk about here for just a minute, because I think a lot of people get hung up on this, and a lot of people who are in our church are divorced. And so I want to ask the question, when is divorce for a Christian person okay? And are there times that we as ministry leaders and pastors should even encourage divorce? So, Jeremy, I kind of want to go to you last, just because we're gonna see you as probably the most experienced. But Spencer, what do you think?
I think so. Divorce is a part of my family. So my parents are divorced. And I think one of the biggest issues, and John MacArthur is just exhibit A with it, is that churches so often are just not willing to have a conversation. They're just, we have this really, really bad habit of just looking at the Bible and we study it, and then we get up in the pulpit and we say, this is what the Bible says, and that's it. And I don't want to talk to you. I don't want to hear your side of the story. I don't want to have a conversation. This is just what the Bible says. So get out of my face.
The Bible says it, and that settles it.
Yep. And I think that has just permeated culture or Christian culture just so much. And I think that there's a trail of bodies behind that ideology. I think, when you look into divorce, it just becomes such a gray area. So much of it is not this black and white issue. And I'm speaking in terms of this woman that was shamed. She ended up in a situation where it was very black and white. You're on the wrong here. Your husband's in the right. You need to reconcile to your husband, period. And there was no conversation to understand, hey, by the way, my husband's an abuser. And, and obviously, now he's in prison. And
interestingly enough, they were aware, they knew that he was an abuser, but the language that the leadership said at that time is, well, okay, he's abusing you, but he's not abusing the children. So think about this as like your way of suffering for Christ as a model for your children.
That's
it's very dark.
Yeah, that's awful.
It's very dark.
Horrible.
So it's not that they didn't believe that it was happening,
right?
Because he even owned up to it.
Right.
It's that this is not, we're still saying that even though this situation is not safe,
right,
or healthy, that you need to remain in it.
Well, yeah. So even there though, I mean, they're approaching a situation with a preconceived belief that is unwavering. And when you do that, you end up causing more damage. And I don't know, I guess that's my opinion on it, is like when you approach a situation like that, you just need to be willing to just shut up and talk to people. And that didn't make any sense. Shut up and listen to people. And just really like hear people out because, when we stop listening to people, man, things get even worse. And I don't know. I don't know if that made any sense. That's just kind of where I'm at with it.
Yeah. What about you, April? What do you think?
I definitely agree. There's times when divorce should be encouraged. Certainly in that situation, she should have been encouraged to leave, especially knowing what they knew. I didn't realize that they knew that, for sure. So I definitely, like Spencer, I think it's a gray area. Certain things. I also think though divorce is really easy for some people. Like, so on the opposite end, like it's just an easy way out. People don't want to, work through things anymore. But when it comes to things like abuse, absolutely.
Yeah. What I always heard growing up, and you take what you hear growing up with a grain of sand, but what I always heard were the 3 A's were a reason for divorce, a biblical minded divorce, which is adultery, addiction, or abuse. And you could actually argue that those 3 things are one and the same, depending on what your definition of those is. If you're addicted, well, in a way, you're having an adulterous relationship with a substance versus a person, but then it's also abusive to the family in the way. So anyway, that's always what I heard growing up. And my family is also a family of divorce, and
mine too.
2 of those 3 things were true for my family. So, but the stigma, because I can still remember going to church, and people in church knew both my parents, and the perception was that my father was this very pious, righteous man, and that's the way he presented himself. And that my mother was somehow in the wrong for this, and she just said, like, you know what, he can have the church, like he can have that specific church. That's what she meant, and she really didn't care that people thought that, and she was just so compassionate in that regard, despite the fact that she didn't have to be compassionate. She chose to be compassionate. So I do think that there is a biblical evidence for it being okay, even though Jesus, talks about, well, Moses gave this to you because you had hard hearts. And I don't think that takes into account all scenarios. And so as a pastor myself, if somebody feels that they are unsafe, or that their well-being is at risk, or their children's well-being is at risk, I would absolutely have no issue recommending divorce, because you just don't know. You don't know all the details, and you don't want to find out that you've been encouraging somebody to stay in an abusive relationship,
Right.
whether that's the husband's the abusive one or the wife's the abusive one, or whether it's towards just the kids or just the spouse. Like abuse is never okay. And I think that sometimes that's one of those things that we should have no problem saying, but that sometimes we have a problem saying.
Right.
Well, and if divorce is the linchpin issue here, like, just talk about like separation, just like go somewhere else. Like if like, why aren't we at least having those conversations,
Sure.
And I don't know, more conversations just need to happen.
Well, the church should be the place where the abused feel safe.
Absolutely.
And protected.
Absolutely.
Not put it at higher risk. Now, to go along with what you said, April, I do agree that for some people, divorce is an easy solution to, whether it be, years of not putting in the work, or, I just don't have that feeling in my chest anymore when I see that person. And, those are based on, that's emotion based. That's based on, honestly, if we get down to it, that's chemical based, because when you see people that you love, get a release of oxytocin, dopamine hits and stuff like that. And those things wane over time, and marriage is something you have to work at. There's a fairly well-known Christian leader that, she very publicly came out, Nadia Bolz-Weber, and said, I divorced my husband of 20 years because our sex life just wasn't exciting anymore. And she was applauded for that. And, it's like, okay, well, that's something that can be worked on, but just that, I don't know that that's grounds for
divorce,
itself for divorce, at least not a biblical one. So, well, let's hear what Jeremy thinks, because he's the expert here.
Yeah, I think the sad part about this story specifically has just been the tradition, and it still obviously exists. You want to think in 2022 that it doesn't, but the shame of the woman maybe more than the man. And I grew up in a church where I remember there was a specific story that I found out about later that just blew my mind, where there was a husband that had like 5 or 6 affairs with his wife. And the story was like, you just got to keep taking them back because that's what God wants. And it's like, no, this is not like, I've even worked with couples before. I did one not too long ago where I worked with them, and my husband had cheated like 5 or 6 times. And I say cheat, not just like, first of all, how do you just cheat? I said, it's like, I just cheated. It was like ongoing things. And they had gone to another pastor, and it was like the same story. Like, you just got to take him back. You got to forgive him. And I'm like, no, you don't. Like, you do need to forgive him, but you don't have to take him back. You are not this ecclesiological punching bag that, the famous, as a dog returns to its vomit, so a fool returns to its folly. You don't have to be a fool here. So no, there have been times when I come work with couples and they come to me, the big issues for me when it comes to divorce are a couple of things. It's so frustrating because there's couples that come and you're at the point where they're just so at each other that you just look at it and you go, I don't know how we're going to figure this out. But the sad thing is, it's stuff that if it would have been talked about 5 years ago, we could have solved it. But because we just let it fester and we didn't do it, and that becomes one of the frustrating things with this, is like when you're working with couples, because I do agree with April. I think some people are just like, I don't like the way she cooks anymore. Or the bigger issue I'm seeing now is I want the new model. I want
the grass is greener.
I want the upgrade, And so those are the ones that I'm like, all right, you really need to think through this. The other thing is like with couples of, I always say this jokingly, but I'm being serious. If you're on your 4th marriage, there's a common denominator, and that's you. And so maybe you need to work on some stuff in you. So I think too, one of the bigger issues of divorce is not actually, because sometimes you just hear people and you hear the scenarios and you hear the stories, and I want to believe that God can do whatever God wants to do in their hearts. But sometimes you're just like, this is not going well. The worst thing I hear people say is, we're going to stay together for the kids. You're putting entirely too much pressure on your kids. They're going to be, I've had couples I work with, and again, that literally their kids were relieved when the parents got the divorce, because it was such a tense environment. It was filled with so much hostility, and they were relieved when their parents got a divorce. Now, I never recommend divorce, because I don't want people to do it because a lot of people are looking for my permission. Well, first of all, I do think that divorce is a bad thing. And I think that God hates divorce. I think he meant it because it hurts people. But at the same time, there eventually also comes a thing where it's like, this is the best thing we can do. I've even told couples sometimes, and people may not agree with this, the most loving thing you can do at this point is to tell them it's over. You know, I mean, sometimes that is the most loving thing you can do at that point, is to say, listen, it's just over. You know, the people will always use the thing of like, well, the only reason for divorce is, you know, infidelity or adultery. Well, you can be unfaithful to somebody without physically cheating on them, you know, in your heart and your mind. I mean, you can be unfaithful to them. So I always try to get couples to realize that is probably the best thing. I never tell them to do it, because what I've learned with just working with people in general, if you make it, I'm not going to tell you what to do. It's got to be your idea, you know, and then I'm going to sit there and I'm not going to fight you on it. I'm not going to be like, you know, yeah, maybe that probably is the next step you need to take. But I'm always willing to work with couples as long as they're willing to fight. Now, and stuff like this with the abuse thing, it's just so sad. Like, I'm just like, this lady needed somebody she was looking for permission to leave her abusive husband. And the fact that the church wouldn't do that is just sad. And it just, I don't know. I just rambled for a little bit, but I mean, I think this is sad, but I think that there are sometimes, you know, and I think the other thing is when it comes to marriage or divorces, I think there's some people that get married that just go in with the wrong idea of what it is. And I think that's the importance of premarital counseling, but also having good influences early on in your marriage. And, you know, I always talk to couples. I was like, communication is the number one thing. And if you can't have honest communication with your spouse, it's not going to happen, you know, and because you're going to carry all this stuff and this passive aggressive stuff, and that's going to lead to fighting. And, you know, so it's just sad reality. It is a part of our culture. But no, there are times when I meet with couples and I wish it wasn't the case, but I just look at it and go, I just don't know how we're going to figure this out. So.
Yeah. Well, I think we can say, farewell, John MacArthur.
Yeah.
No, if you have John MacArthur books, I don't know. What do you do with those John MacArthur books at this point?
He's just said so many things that just over the years, I mean, I don't know.
Like kindling or, you know, sell them paperweights. What do you
I don't know. And because there's people that love John MacArthur. I don't know. I'm in a hard place with these guys, because it's just like, you're hurting so many people.
Yeah.
And it's like, you know, this is not of Jesus.
But they think what they're doing is of Jesus, and that's even
yeah, you're not wrong.
more
yeah,
scary.
and that's the sad part is that, you know, and I would argue, because I mean, John MacArthur's also said some good stuff and has defended some. I mean, but then stuff like this, you just look at it and you're like, seriously, like how? Like, I don't know. I just don't.
So here's what we're gonna do. We are going to do a trade-in program, a buyback program, if you will. You trade in your John MacArthur books, and April will give you a copy of Redeeming Love.
Yep.
Oh, yay.
I will go ahead and say, if people are listening to us, what episode are we on? 16?
17.
If they've made 17 episodes with us, they're probably not John MacArthur fans anyway.
That's probably true.
I think most John MacArthur fans, when you said suck on a pirate's nipple,
Yeah,
I think at that point they would have been out.
They would have been out.
They haven't even made it this far.
So I had a John MacArthur book when I was cleaning out the basement a few weeks ago. So I don't even know what it was. It was given to me at Christmas, but I was going to bring it in for Jeremy.
You should.
I think he'd like it.
We'll do a giveaway. Yeah. So we'll both do a buyback program and a giveaway.
There you go.
So just since we're on the topic of a divorce, just to end on a funny story. So when the first time I met my father-in-law, you know, Leah and I had been dating a while, and he's just he's an interesting guy. He doesn't listen to this, so I can say whatever I want. But
I was holding my tongue.
No, he doesn't listen. So we're sitting there, and he's like, "Oh, so you're dating my daughter?" Yeah, that's kind of why I'm here. And he said, well, you just need to know. And he's not an intimidating figure, like, at all. He sounds like Grover from Sesame Street, honestly. And he said, well, I just need you to know, I don't believe in divorce. And I said, but divorce believes in you. So, anyway, thanks for joining us for episode 17. We will see you next time, except for Spencer, who will still be listening all the way from
Iowa. From a cornfield.
Yeah.
I'm not going to live in a cornfield.
Have a good one.